something. Looks good. I can see Wally Hamlin now. Don has a smile on his face, and there's Wally. Lean back a little bit. You're too close to the camera. There you are. We'll have Cecil B. the Stafford down here directing. Okay, what's the next one? Keep those cards and letters coming in, folks. It's loud and clear. Hey, we got you. I can see Isley talking there. Hey, Don, turn your head to the right. There you go.
After the successful completion of 10 successive manned Gemini flights, the time had arrived for the Apollo project. The project to land men on the moon for scientific exploration and return them safely to Earth. It has been called the greatest scientific, engineering, and exploratory challenge in the history of mankind.
We've got a communication here from the American Federation of Television and Radio Artists advising that the 3 pilots have been awarded honorary memberships in that union, which represents all performers on radio and TV. Their cards will be awaiting for them when they get back down. The Apollo moon.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
Ignition! Look at the flame pour out from the bottom of those 8 inches. A huge orange cloud, as usual, blowing up, and you can hear the newsmen applauding in the background as the Saturn 1B lifts off past 34. A brilliant flame shooting down as it climbs ever so slowly up into the sky.
On the side of the crater. We're surveyor, surveyor, yes sir. Does that look neat? It can't be any further than 600 feet from here. How about that? Boy, do I think it, wow. Dum-dum-dum-dum.
8 more moon exploration flights are planned. Experiments will become more sophisticated. Flights to other planets are a virtual certainty, with trips to the stars sounding much less outlandish than we once believed.
But ground control later had some information that cheered the astronauts.
You might want to know how well the TV was received this morning. On all 3 networks, you replaced all the kiddie cartoons.
Commentator at ground control found out self-criticism is one thing, outside reviews another.
It's also suggested better actors. Right. We would have thought of a better plot, but we didn't get enough sleep last night. Okay, I get the point.
Put his fellow Apollo astronauts through close order drill in the spaceship this morning during the television show. It was such drill as only could be done in weightlessness. They do a slow left face. Now a very slow about face. The 2 astronauts spun like a top completely around 3 times in their weightlessness.
No man had ever done was done in 1969. A 38-year-old civilian from Wapakoneta, Ohio, took a place in history on July 20th. He was Neil Armstrong, and he spoke from more than 241,000 miles away.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Man's centuries-old dream of visiting other worlds came true when Armstrong stepped onto the moon's surface on that Sunday in July. From a Cape Kennedy blastoff, the Apollo 11 flight was perfect. world waited anxiously when the landing module approached the Sea of Tranquility. Lem's automatic guidance system was taking the craft toward a rough landing area. Just 200 feet from touchdown, Armstrong calmly took over and manually flew the craft to a safe landing. The descent engine had only 55 seconds of fuel left when man's first words came from the moon.
Listen, Tranquility base here. The Eagle has landed. Roger, Tranquility. We copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. We're breathing again. Thanks a lot.
A few hours later, Armstrong left the Lem, stepped onto the moon, and was soon joined by fellow astronaut Edwin Aldrin.
Beautiful, beautiful. Is that something? Magnificent flight out here. Magnificent desolation.
While Armstrong and Aldrin explored the lunar surface and carried out their collections and experiments, Michael Collins orbited above in the command ship. The Apollo flight had a primary purpose, and it was accomplished. Man could fly to the moon, land, and return safely. The commitment had come 8 years earlier.
I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the Earth.
John F. Kennedy speaking in May of 1961. Apollo 11 stirred what had become a lagging public interest in the space program. Detroiters reacted to the incredible event.
I was talking to my father last night, and he said that when he was younger, he never thought he'd see anything like this. And I'm really glad that I can see it.
Well, I think it's one of the most amazing things that's ever happened.
First one's in the moon. I think that's great. It's just great. You never could believe it would happen. Here it is.
In November, we did it again. This time, Apollo 12, and some frightening moments during liftoff.
Okay, we just lost the platform, gang. I don't know what happened here. We had everything in the world drop out. We had our problems here. I don't know what happened. I'm not sure we get hit by lightning. Okay, we're all chuckling up here over the lights. We all said there were so many on we couldn't read them. Hey, I'll tell you one thing. It's a first-class ride, Houston.
The spacecraft had indeed been struck by lightning, but the difficulty was momentary. Pete Conrad, Alan Bean, Dick Gordon took it in stride. And a few days later, Conrad and Bean became the third and fourth men to walk the moon's surface after